Hi friends, let's talk about boosting your immunity and the top 10 must-eats. Number 10 is an easy and quick drink I do daily that contains less than a third caffeine than coffee, and that is green tea. On the average, a cup of coffee has roughly 100 milligrams of caffeine, and green tea has 30 milligrams of caffeine. Drinking green tea is essentially eating a green leaf if you drink matcha green tea. I used to think that brilliant green matcha color was artificial, but it's not. Although you still need to be careful because some brands do put artificial ingredients. Matcha contains EGCG, epigalactocatechin gallate, a polyphenol that regulates mitochondrial metabolism. Green tea has an array of unique, powerful anti-infective antioxidants that have been used by ancient cultures for eons to enhance immunity. It's so powerful that there is an FDA-approved anal wart cream made out of green tea that suppresses human papillomavirus, or HPV, in the anus. That is a cause of genital warts. People who have HPV, whether that is detected on your cervix or anus, are at higher risk of anal cancer. And if you have ever been sexually active, get yourself screened with a pap smear. Early intervention can make a world of difference to prevent progression to cervical or anal cancer, which are both global health problems. If you're between 30 to 44 years old, cervical cancer rates are increasing in your age group. It remains one of the most common causes of death in American women, and I have seen people with this condition due to multiple infectious complications. Anal cancer is also on the rise, and this can happen to both men and women. A gastroenterologist or colorectal surgeon needs to take a look there, and they may need to do a biopsy to see if you have atypical cells. Have you seen the recent headlines? Cancer is no longer an old person's disease. Young people are getting aggressive, life-threatening cancers. I've been seeing more cases in the last decade. Western medicine focuses on secondary interventions with procedures, which means you already have abnormal cells or even cancer. If we find them early, we may be able to remove them or kill them. But wouldn't you rather not have abnormal cells, period? I would. That power lies in you and your immunity, in your lifestyle, especially in the foods that you choose to eat. This is a power of green tea. Green tea also works above the diaphragm, and even daily rinsing and gargling with green tea can reduce the frequency and severity of cold symptoms in children and the elderly, which are both considered to be immunocompromised. In 2020, I had no choice but to train myself to eat and drink foods to survive. So that's when I developed the habit of drinking green tea every morning and learned to like matcha. Another common reason people have poor immune system is a lack of fluid, which is number 9, hydration. It is one of the most common reasons why people feel tired and get infections. I have doctor friends who have gotten kidney stones, bladder infections, and kidney infections because they forget to drink, and then they hold their urine. Your immunity is dependent upon blood flow, and fluid needs to go in and go out, just like cleaning your sidewalk with a hose, which you shouldn't do if you live in a drought city like me. But water sure does clean things well. And when you are dehydrated, the smallest capillaries that supply your skin and mucous membranes, they get choked off first. And that's why your skin tense and your mucous membranes and tongue are dry. My own mom got sepsis from dehydration because a simple urinary tract infection became a kidney infection, and then that became a life-threatening bloodstream infection. She was hospitalized for a week, and that unmasked her dementia. IV hydration is the most important thing every doctor should do immediately when they suspect sepsis. And in fact, it is the standard of care in the International Sepsis Protocol. Hydration or fluid resuscitation can be the difference between life and death. So the number one thing I always reach for when I feel tired is a glass of water to feed my immunity. I've known all my life that plants have medicinal properties because that's what my parents taught me as a young child. But you know what? I never believed them because frankly, I poo-pooed ancient wisdom and believed Western medicine was far superior. However, Western medicine couldn't save millions of lives in 2020. And that's why I turned to food. And I knew that dark, rich, colorful foods are super healthy, like number 8, blueberries and blackberries. These super colorful foods are packed with fiber to fuel your gut microbiome, which, by the way, is your largest immune system. Your gut is an incredible machine. There are over 40 trillion microbes that live in your gut, guarded by a large collection of your own immune cells. It's like a nuclear power plant that can feed endless energy to a city. But when there's a leak, there's a massive amount of damage. But unlike nuclear power plants, where it is controlled by governments, the power to fuel and protect your gut and your immunity is in your hands. In the ideal scenario, this fermentation machine in your colon reduces inflammation for your entire body. Have you ever made sourdough bread? Many people use a sourdough starter, and a healthy sourdough starter smells yeasty because it's full of live microbes, and the end result is a beautiful loaf of bread. However, the starter goes bad and grows the wrong microbes, then that starter will smell foul, maybe more of a putrid, moldy smell. Don't use that starter or you may get pretty sick and massive inflammation. And that bread could be a mycotoxin-rich poisonous dough. This is the same concept in your gut, where the starter is your gut microbes, and they can be good or bad. And when it is good, your stool doesn't smell bad. Just about anyone who's ever worked in the hospital healthcare setting has smelled Clostridium difficile diarrhea. It's a very unique scent. Clostridium difficile causes a life-threatening colitis, and it is getting harder and harder to treat. When your stool stinks, when it's putrefied, you know you have toxic microbes. So if you need to spray some kind of air freshener after you do number 2, you should really consider changing your diet. And one way to make your gut stronger and smell better is to eat more fiber. Fiber doesn't make your stool smell bad because it feeds good gut microbes, which ferments fiber into short-chain fatty acids that gets absorbed and used by your body, especially your colon. Fiber is your anti-inflammatory prebiotic stool starter, and your gut microbes ferment fiber to modulate your immune system, influencing the development of T cells, neutrophils, macrophages, and natural killer cells, which are all involved in both your innate and adaptive immune systems. Attached to fiber are more prebiotic molecules called polyphenols or anthocyanins that are in berries that microbes can then transform into more biologically active compounds to help further reduce inflammation. Your gut is essentially an amazing fermentation machine, and the end result includes beneficial short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, that supplies the necessary energy calories for your colonic cells to have the strength to push that stool down your toilet. And your colon is essentially a giant muscular hose, and when it contracts, your stool slowly moves down towards your anus. So the foods that you eat don't directly give your colon energy. They depend on your gut microbes to make fresh butyrate. Think of your colon like the ancient city of Pompeii, with pockets of people who make fresh foods for their local community. There's pockets all over your colon. And this is why when you don't eat fibrous foods, especially from fruits, it's harder to have a bowel movement because your colonic cells, they don't have the energy. They're not getting the calories that they need to flex their muscles. So large biceps on the outside don't translate into strong colonic energetic poops. And if you don't have colonic energy, your immunity suffers and your gut becomes leaky. Leaky gut is a real phenomenon. And if you leak endotoxins, which are the cell walls of gram-negative pathogenic bacteria, you will have massive inflammation to the rest of your body. And the most severe forms will manifest as sepsis. This is why it's good to avoid food poisoning. And the best way to do that is to avoid contaminated foods full of bacteria. And the majority of that comes from animal products, especially raw animal products. Unfortunately, endotoxin is not destroyed by heat. So even if you ate your burger charcoal black, there is still endotoxin that can cause inflammation. But you can counter that with a whole bunch of spices. I always wash and rub or even scrub my fruits, even frozen fruits. And my goal is not to sterilize my food. It is to reduce the load of bacteria on the food. And whole foods are longevity foods because they contain a variety of special prebiotic ingredients like peptin, beta-glucans, oligofructose, and eating the right portions of whole foods with prebiotics. They help your gut microbiome to make short-chain fatty acids, just like butyrate, to help strengthen your mucosal skin barrier, which really is your first line of defense from toxins as well as pathogens. It's so easy to tell that foods have anthocyanins because those foods naturally will be colorful, like the dark blue colors of blueberries. Have you ever spent a day out in nature, maybe going to Disneyland, and then you woke up the next day fatigued and sore? When you go to Disneyland, that's easily a 20,000 step day. That exhaustion and soreness is what healthcare workers felt like every day at work. And some of us had to work 7 days a week every week for a couple of years. The physical and emotional exhaustion is so much worse than going to Disneyland or running my half marathon, because at least the latter two were fun and happy events that I chose to do, and I could choose to rest the day after. However, as a healthcare worker, there was no option but to get up and do it again every day. So I had to figure out how to optimize my recovery time, and that's where blueberries shine. Runners who eat blueberries recover faster, literally. They've actually done muscle biopsies in runners to show that blueberries reduce muscle inflammation after exercise. But the effects of berries go beyond reducing muscle inflammation. Certain berries, like elderberry, have been shown to speed recovery and reduce symptoms in those with respiratory infections. This is why, number 7, I eat elderberries every day. It is actually another ancient plant. Ancient Egypt and Rome used the sacred elderberry plant as a remedy for illnesses and to ward off evil spirits. In the European folklore, the elder tree was believed to have protective and mystical properties. Ancient Greek physicians, including Hippocrates, the father of medicine, recognized its medicinal value and documented its use in treating various ailments. Elderberries were used for their diuretic, laxative, and fever-reducing properties, as well as for treating respiratory conditions and promoting skin health. Modern studies have shown elderberry extracts to stimulate the production of cytokines, which are signaling molecules involved in immune regulation. And research suggests that the anthocyanins in elderberries may inhibit the replication of certain viruses, including specific strains of influenza. And that's why in the fall and winter, you may see the store shelves lined with cold and flu relief remedies made of elderberry supplements. And some of these supplements may help to reduce the severity and duration of symptoms caused by viral infections. However, you can't just pick elderberries and eat them raw. Ancient cultures learned this the hard way because bad things also happened to people who ate raw elderberries. Did you know that the elder wand used by Dumbledore in Harry Potter was referencing the elderberry tree? Now, how can a plant be both good and bad? Because raw elderberries, they have cyanide, and they should only be consumed when they are ripened and cooked to get rid of the cyanide. And that's why most people drink elderberry teas or eat them as processed syrup. Cyanide poisoning, it's not subtle, folks. Within 15 minutes after eating improperly prepared elderberries, you will get nauseous, throw up, have cramps, and weakness. And this is the power of learning from observational studies, including our ancestors, which these Californians, they didn't do. So many things can make you weak, especially if you don't have the right equipment for your muscle cells to contract. The thing is, all cells need the same equipment to function. So if your muscles are struggling, your immune cells won't be able to fight either. And this is why magnesium is so helpful. Have you ever gotten a muscle cramp? Painful, huh? I did during medical school in my left anterior thigh. It was so bad, I couldn't bend my leg to reach the bar of soap that dropped in the shower. Half of America is inadequate in magnesium, and so was I. Having cramps is a telltale sign of the lack of magnesium, which is why I take number 6 magnesium supplements daily. Magnesium is so important for your metabolism because it's involved in over 300 normal daily biochemical reactions. And taking supplements is my insurance policy for my body. I'm sure you have insurance for everything: your car, your home, disability, liability, medical care, but you may or may not use them. Insurance is really a safety net, and that's why I take supplements. I hope to never have to use my car, home, disability, or liability policies, but I know that I am actually using my supplement insurance policy daily because I see the effects on my skin. And on the days that I don't adequately top off, my hands can't take the abuse of hand washing that I have to do as a physician every day. There are millions of chemical reactions that allow you to breathe and sit, let alone walk, run, and talk, like number 5, vitamin D, which your own body can make by going in sunlight. However, if you have any of these conditions, you're likely to be vitamin D deficient. I was, and I didn't even have any of those factors. 94% of Americans do not meet their daily requirement of vitamin D. I didn't get enough sunlight as a medical student and medical resident living in the hospital day in and day out every third day. That only leaves one day to make up for the lack of sleep because I was always sleep deprived. I remember I literally had to work 36 straight hours in the hospital without sleep, having to run 3 code blues that morning, which literally broke my emotional stamina. At the time, I didn't realize how unhealthy chasing my career would be until a couple of years later when I began having rashes all over my body. I saw 6 specialists with several biopsies, and no one could figure out why I was having rashes. But my rheumatologist offered me an immunosuppressive drug, which I refused to take. And I decided to take matters in my own hand and change my diet, and then my rashes all cleared up. Now, looking back, I know why. I was so vitamin D deficient. If you don't have adequate vitamin D, you will have all sorts of autoimmune problems, and taking a daily vitamin D supplement, even if you aren't low, is still beneficial to prevent autoimmune diseases by 22%. There's no prescription medication that can do that. So instead of avoiding sunlight, I make sure I get early morning sunlight and drink my green tea to counteract the aging UV rays, as green tea can help regenerate my skin, keep it moist, reduce fine lines, age spots, and wrinkles. It's kind of ironic Asians don't like to go in the sun because of aging skin damage, yet they don't mind inhaling aging toxins in a cigarette. I did such a good job avoiding the sun that I had a single-digit vitamin D level. That's really bad. Some of you have asked what I use on my skin. I basically use water to wash my face and clean my hands with soap and water multiple times a day, probably at least 40 times a day. So that's a lot of trauma on my hands. But I eat strategically to naturally boost my immunity to maximize cellular repair. And this includes strategically eating foods and supplements, and many of which I am sharing with you on this video. You probably think I've been doing this most of my life, but no, I've only been living this militant lifestyle for the last 3 years. I mean, I ate pretty well before, but I wasn't as strict. And before 2020, I didn't pay much attention to my skin. I'm a busy career mom, and skincare was never on my priority. I'd rather sleep than do any skincare. But in 2020, when I was forced to boost my immunity just to go to work, I laid down a strategic plan really for survival, just like my ancestors when there were no life-saving drugs or healthcare. I literally lived that world for over 2 years. It was really depressing. But it just so happens that the side benefits of eating well to support my immunity gave me younger looking skin, because your skin is your largest immune organ. And when your immunity is strong, you will see it in the health of your skin. So my skin didn't look like this until I fixed my diet and nutrition. And as a medical doctor, I can tell a lot about a patient's immune system struggles just on a skin exam. Adults spend billions of dollars on skincare, yet children have perfect skin, and oftentimes they don't even wash it. If you think about your little children, do you really put anything on their skin except for maybe at most sunblock if they let you? Have you noticed that when they get a cold, they bounce right back in a few days? But when an adult gets a cold, that may be pneumonia. And that's because kids have awesome mitochondria. Do you remember the mitochondria from biology? We used to think it was just the battery of every cell. It's so much more than that. You know how the Pentagon is man-centered to defend the U.S.? The mitochondria is like the Pentagon in each of your cells, and it also controls the electricity that keeps your light on. Last year, my son didn't realize his refrigerator wasn't cold, and finally one day he opened the freezer and everything defrosted and spoiled. Well, that is aging. If you don't pay attention to mitochondria health, just like a broken refrigerator, you may think the lights are on, but it really isn't. And along the way, you'll actually have a lot of clues that tell you your mitochondria are suffering throughout your life, but many people ignore these clues. You know how your children are so bouncy and bubbly, and when they fall and scrape themselves, they heal overnight? There's a reason for that. That's because they have an abundance of very efficient and healthy mitochondria. If you have bad skin and struggle to heal minor scrapes and cuts, your mitochondria and your immunity, they're both struggling. In fact, your skin is an immune organ. All cells have mitochondria except for sperm cells. And that's why all your mitochondria are from your mom. Isn't that pretty neat? People with inheritable mitochondrial disorders can get diabetes, but most people with diabetes did not inherit bad genes. But they do inherit bad habits that cause diabetes. And for people who struggle with blood sugar control, they oftentimes will have signs of diabetes on their skin. And these things often go ignored and are just thought of as aging. But what's aging is your metabolism and struggling mitochondria. Skin spots, velvet black patches, hard thickened skin, red or yellow bumps, raised or flat, yellow, red, brown or purple patches, or persistent open wounds, and even skin tags can all be signs of progressive diabetes. It's just so important to get sunlight when you're struggling with infections because this open air method of treatment was actually used during the Spanish flu to help patients, unlike our modern day confinement in a closed box in your bedroom or institution. Go out, get some fresh air, allow your germs to fly away. People who are vitamin D deficient get all sorts of respiratory infections, and the lower your vitamin D level, the greater your risk. And this happened to me. My very first medical rotation was pediatrics. I probably caught the flu and struggled to recover for 3 months. No one ever told me to check my vitamin D level or just simply take a low dose supplement. And I was surrounded by physicians every day for 9 continuous years in training. Taking a daily low dose of vitamin D appears to be more beneficial than high-dose boluses, although some people may need to do both, like me. The benefits of adequate vitamin D are countless because there are vitamin D receptors in every single cell in your body. It is that important. Very few foods have natural vitamin D, and this is why it's not practical to depend on your food for vitamin D. Even eating mushrooms and sunning them before you cook them are unlikely to get you adequate vitamin D levels. But I still eat mushrooms for their other immune-boosting nutrients like beta-glucans, which is actually present in many fungi. Mushrooms are essentially fungi. Beta-glucans is actually a serum marker that we can use to diagnose invasive fungal infections. It is known to enhance immune cells to defend against viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, and even tumor cells. There is no way to completely avoid infectious diseases. Things happen. I've gotten sepsis and I've also ran a half marathon unprepared. They both feel horrible. And having an overwhelming infectious illness feels like running a marathon because the biochemical reactions that happen are the same, except when you're ill, you physically don't go anywhere. The body needs essentially the same basic ingredients for energy and recovery. And that's why I was so fascinated with this study on the effects of exercise tolerance with this ancient fungus, which is number 4, called cordyceps. Did you know that at one time, cordyceps was the most expensive mushroom in the world, selling at $50,000 a pound, which was worth more than a pound of gold? It's actually known as a Viagra of the Himalayas, or a caterpillar mushroom. The story goes that Tibetan farmers noticed that their sheep who ate cordyceps mushrooms were full of energy. They tried it themselves and realized it not only gave them energy, but it was an aphrodisiac. And since then, even some Olympic athletes claim that cordyceps gave them their performance edge. That is how powerful eating the right foods can be. And this is why I take cordyceps daily. Taking the right supplements is not just randomly taking a multivitamin, although that has been shown to be more beneficial than doing nothing. But supplements are not like medicine unless you're absolutely deficient, like the millions of sailors who died of scurvy, which is number 3, vitamin C. Can you believe that 40% of Americans still don't get enough vitamin C in their diet daily? Vitamin C is abundant in fresh fruits and vegetables, and this is why it's good to eat a mixture of fresh and cooked produce. Many people only think about taking vitamin C when they get sick. They know it helps the body fight infections. That is true, but vitamin C is also vital for good skin, good blood pressure, good blood sugar levels, good mental health, and good bowel movements. Did you know that your brain is the organ that uses the most vitamin C? And like vitamin B1 thiamine, vitamin C can't be stored. Your body also can't make it, but you need to eat it on a daily basis as an antioxidant. Your brain undergoes so much oxidative stress because it is made out of fat, and electricity is shooting through all this fat all the time. It's like burning butter. That brown color is oxidative stress for your butter. That's actually bad. Have you ever cut an apple and put some lime or lemon on it to prevent browning? It tastes delicious, but that's also the power of vitamin C, preventing browning. It prevents oxidation. Browning of your brain will literally shut it off. And that's why we all need the antioxidant power of vitamin C, so we can think better. But if your brain doesn't get enough vitamin C, you better bet there's not going to be anything left for your immunity. The RDA recommendation is a ridiculously low value of 75 milligrams for women, which is amount necessary to prevent a deadly disease called scurvy. But if your goal is to prevent scurvy, you're on the wrong boat of health. It's like aiming for that grade C to pass your class. I want an A+ for health, and this is why I look at the history of food and nutrition to learn from what people did right or did wrong. Life is too short to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and then to wait for a randomized clinical trial to prove that we're doing something wrong. This is the power of observation and history. Learn from the masses of people who have traveled the same road. not the one-offs. The 16th to 18th century sailors, 2 million of them, all learned the hard way that a diet of meat, dairy, and bread will literally give you an early death from vitamin C deficiency. Scurvy. Despite 2 million sailors dying, people still don't eat fresh fruits and vegetables daily. Cooked fruits and vegetables have much less vitamin C. Guess which fruit has the highest vitamin C? Now, if you think it's the orange, that's because the first documented successful randomized controlled medical trial on record was done by a English Navy doctor who nursed sailors with scurvy back to health with oranges. But oranges, they don't actually have as much vitamin C as a kiwi. You may have heard the term limeys. The British sailors were called limeys because they brought lemons and limes as their vitamin C source, which really aren't even great sources of vitamin C. But something is better than nothing. Incredibly, the U.S. Navy refused to learn from this world history, and they still struggled with scurvy in the 19th century. And this still reflects our modern day closed-mindedness on food and nutrition. Today, the U.S. Navy encourages 2.6 cups of vegetables and 2 cups of fruit daily, which I don't believe is enough, but so many people don't even eat this minimum amount. And by the way, just because a fruit is sour, it doesn't mean it has a lot of vitamin C. A lime has 19.5 milligrams of vitamin C, and you literally have to eat 4 whole limes to meet your minimum intake of vitamin C. Whereas a red bell pepper has 152 milligrams, which is equivalent to 3 medium oranges. That's still not enough vitamin C for wound healing. Paprika, the spice made from red peppers, is how vitamin C was purified, which won the Nobel Peace Prize. Every time you get an infection, you get inflammation. And the more inflammation you get, the higher your risk of cancer. This is also why people who are chronically inflamed, be it mental stress, or with diabetes or being overweight, all have higher rates of cancers. Now, I'm not in the camp of getting sick to train my immunity. I train my immunity through eating raw and cooked whole plants because plants have figured it out and they know how to survive the earth. They have the keys to make us feel better both mentally and physically for eons. Think about it. Plants are the longest living multicellular land organisms, and the entire animal kingdom walking on this planet is dependent upon plants to live. Plants are fully independent and they can heal on their own and make food on their own. All living predators depend on plants to feed their prey. But the beauty of plants is that they are more than just calories. Early humans discovered that plants can change their feelings and give them feelings of happiness, relaxation, peace, drowsiness, energy, alertness. And that's because plants have phytochemicals that modern day science have purified into painkillers, blood thinners, and cancer chemotherapy to use as medicines. Humans have been eating plants for their therapeutic effects for thousands of years, and all the modern abusive drugs are essentially made from plants. Alcohol is a fermentation product of grapes and berries, recorded as old as 8000 BC. American physicians prescribed brandy and whiskey in the 20th century, and hospitals served brandy as an anesthetic as late as 1963. In 5000 BC, ancient Sumeria used opium, the source of morphine. In fact, opium was once commonly used by women, men, and children as a painkiller and cough suppressant and sold over the counter in America before the Civil War. People actually went to taverns like bars to get their opium fix. And this wasn't banned until 1914. Today we have decades of abuse with illicit and prescription drugs because people figured out how to genetically modify plants, purify the bioactive chemicals, or make them synthetically. Now, even the marijuana plant used today is not the same medicinal plant used in 3000 BC in ancient China. Purifying an ingredient may not work the same as the original plant. Take dronabinol, a phytochemical that is purified from marijuana and is legally prescribed by medical doctors to help with nausea, vomiting, and improving appetite. However, the original marijuana plant has thousands of other chemicals, some of which may be synergistically working together. And this may help one achieve better benefits without the side effects, which is a huge problem with medicines. Adverse drug reactions are common since nearly half of Americans are on one or more prescription drugs. Now, I'm not advocating any of these plants to use, but there are 300,000 edible plants, and my diet is whole food plant-based since there are thousands of phytonutrients in any one of these plants that talk to my immunity to turn on or off immune molecules to tame inflammation. Now, when the events of 2020 unfolded, I approached my health like ancient cultures and looked towards plants to strengthen my immunity. Trapped in hundreds of confined, contagious, infectious rooms throughout the chaos of 2020, I've never gotten sick, and I've taken multiple tests to confirm that I haven't caught the bug despite hardcore exposure. I work really hard not to be exposed, and there is no guarantee in life. Getting one infection oftentimes doesn't protect one from future infections. That's why people struggle with recurrent infections, whether they're urinary tract infections, colds, recurrent bronchitis, pneumonia, sinusitis, or cellulitis. We have lots of drugs to help other organs, especially the heart, but we have totally neglected our immune system because everyone believes shots and antibiotics were the end all be all. And now we all know that it's impossible to have drugs for every bug. We are going back to ancient times. In ancient times, people lived to the ripe old age of 40 due to infectious diseases. And the reason why people can live twice as long now is because we have better sanitation practices to prevent infections, and we have backup medicines like antibiotics and surgical interventions to help when prevention fails. But the greatest way to maintain your health and to prevent really any disease is to strengthen your immunity. And there are multiple ways to do that. Have you ever initiated a household project only to leave it unfinished due to constant interruptions from phone calls, hungry children, or distractions from social media? Your immune system has several projects going on 24/7, 7 days a week, all to keep you healthy. It protects you from all different kinds of foreign invaders, from living germs to chemicals and toxins in your water to cancer cells created by your own body. It heals your body when your body is injured, whether the injury is visible on your skin or invisible in your gut. Your immunity cleans up and removes damage in old cells, and it needs to prepare your body for the next attack. So when you're constantly distracted by getting repeated infections or eating inflammatory junk foods, the end result is the same. The quality of these core projects will be compromised, and you'll know it because you'll struggle to keep up your health. You see, we are all surrounded by toxins that poison our bodies. Air pollution, germs, processed foods, cosmetics, and even ingredients in your tap water. They are all constantly challenging our body, and it's up to your immunity to guard your health. And this is why your mitochondria, the pentagon of your cells, are so important. And this is why we need to protect it. Because when your mitochondria fail, your DNA will get damaged, your energy will go in the toilet, and you'll start creating cancer cells, which will then be missed by weakened immune cells. Do you see how everything has a chain reaction in your body? And this is why it's important to live a lifestyle focusing on things to improve your mitochondrial health, to increase its efficiency and numbers. And you know your mitochondria is struggling when you have difficulties overcoming immune challenges. Some people are constantly getting sick with colds and others are overactive with allergies. Both are signs that your immunity is struggling, not because you're underexposed to germs and toxins, but it's because your mitochondria are missing micronutrients. And that's why I aim for number 2, a group of phytonutrients called carotenoids. And there are several of them, and some of them get converted to vitamin A, an essential fat-soluble vitamin for your brain, immunity, and cellular growth and repair. The fastest growing cell in your body is your immune cell, called the neutrophil, which can turn over in hours. We can actually measure that in your blood to see how you're responding to treatment when you have an infection. Your brain is made out of so much fat, but it actually doesn't need the saturated fat and cholesterol that's in your food because it can make all those things on its own. But it does need carotenoids, which it can't make. Carotenoids are antioxidants, just like vitamin C, which works differently to help prevent your brain tissue from browning. Fat, be it in cooking oil or potato chips or your brain, are all easily oxidized. And when you eat carotenoids, you're actually helping out your strongest detoxification system called the glutathione redox system. People with higher blood levels of carotenoids have a lower risk of heart disease, improved triglyceride, cholesterol, and men also have improved blood sugars and smaller waist. Carotenoids are primarily found in plants. It's the yellow and orange pigments that you see in a kabocha squash, which is delicious to eat, by the way. If you've never had one, you've missed out on one of my favorite sweet foods to eat. Kabocha squash has a creamy, rich, sweet texture that tastes like it should spike your blood sugars, but it actually has a low glycemic load, lower than sweet potatoes. They are excellent for everyone to eat, including people with diabetes. They are so easy to make, and you can even microwave a kabocha squash for about 10 minutes after you basically stab it all around. I use a fork, so this way it doesn't explode in the microwave. I do this to soften it since it's really hard to cut. It helps to have a large cleaver unless you soften it enough in the microwave. Then let it cool down, cut it in half, scoop the seeds out. You can dice it up and add the cubes with the skin to your soups, chilies, or whatever dish you're making. I don't recommend deep frying it, but it does taste pretty good, better than French fries. And by the way, did you know that the treatment of childhood measles is IV vitamin A? That's how powerful carotenoids are. I cannot emphasize enough the power of eating adequate amounts of colorful whole plants because I see so many people with skin conditions that lead to serious life-threatening loss of limb, loss of organs, or loss of life. And when you are low in vitamin A, besides dry skin, you can have a leaky gut, you can have diarrhea, chronic coughing, dry eyes, cataracts, and kidney stones. Two special carotenoids deserve special mention: lutein and zeaxanthin, which are used in your retina to help you see. Literally, your eye is an extension of your brain. And when you eat foods that are rich in these two compounds, you can help prevent macular degeneration. If you think about it, your eyes are constantly being bombarded by damaging, stressful light waves when you're in the sun or staring at your computer screen. And that's why it's beneficial for you and your kids to wear sunglasses and also take a break in between screen time. Now, if you give your body the right equipment, it can repair that damage more easily. And we can measure these nutrients in your blood as well as your eye. And people who have higher lutein and zeaxanthin levels have healthier brains. Some people, though, choose a megadose vitamin A, which can be toxic. So you have to be careful. Accutane to treat acne is a form of vitamin A, and it's toxic and can cause cancers, and it's really unsafe in pregnancy. So please be cautious whenever you are taking excess levels of vitamin A supplements. They can build up in your body. When you eat whole plants to get carotenoids, you don't have to worry about toxic levels because nature has it all programmed to get you to stop. And that's the benefit of eating fiber. You can only eat so much fiber before you are full. Nobody can avoid oxidative stress. Everybody accumulates it. And your food can reduce or elevate that stress in your body. Damaging reactive oxygen species is a trash of normal metabolism that causes oxidative stress. And this is why you can only exercise so long without getting tired. But we know people can train their bodies to be more resilient against fatigue. That is why athletes can make their bodies do miraculous feats. But they aren't eating a bunch of Cheetos and expecting to break world records. And just because you're not an athlete doesn't mean life won't challenge you to perform like an athlete one day. Everyone had to be able to run away from predators like lions and tigers, and the slow ones get eaten. But more people in history died and continue to die of infectious diseases that will challenge your metabolism, just like being chased by lions and tigers. Are you ready for the fight? I prepare myself every day for that fight, never knowing when an infection will come my way and challenge my immunity and literally my life. And that is why I eat to support the most important metabolic pathways to clear toxins, the glutathione redox system, which needs adequate magnesium, selenium, riboflavin, and cysteine, which I take as a supplement called N-Acetylcysteine. In 1997, this paper showed that N-Acetylcysteine reduced the frequency, duration, and severity of influenza infections. But N-Acetylcysteine has so many more benefits than just supporting your respiratory health. And if you want to learn more about N-Acetylcysteine, watch the next video.